the people in. That wasn't to keep us out. They were locking their own people in. But this elderly woman met an age where they would allow her to go over to the West for a month. And we spoke with that woman, and she was so happy to be in the West on the free side. She showed us she had candy bars, nylon stockings, and she had all kinds of things in this bag. She was just so happy to visit relatives, because you have to remember, families were broke apart because of communism. Another word, by the way, for communism is called socialism. That's another word. That's another word for that. But let me tell you, we spoke with that woman, and it just broke my heart. Of course, I asked her the logical question. I said, why don't you just defect and stay here? And she explained to us the repercussions that is going to happen to her family that is left back in the East. They're going to disappear. And we had a Colonel Crow there in Fulda. I had a friend from Hawaii in the Army. His name was Greg Kabashigawa. He was about that tall, and we hung out all the time. And we were on guard duty. And I never forget, in the middle of the night, Colonel Crow came up, and he got out of his Jeep and walked up to us, and he said to these two young soldiers, "Do you see that?" And that was the border there between the East and the West. He said, "You guys are on the front line of freedom." And that just touched me. And I thought about this lady, and I never forget, Ronald Reagan was president, and I'm going to age myself. Yes, absolutely. And Ronald Reagan went to Berlin. He didn't say, "I'm a Berliner." He didn't say, "I share your plight." He didn't say, no offense to John F. Kennedy or anyone else. But he said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." And that wall finally came down, and those people got to live in freedom. But basically, that's the thing that makes me do what I do, and why I have Right Way Clarksville, and I've been involved in the Republican Party, and I sure would appreciate you vote. Sorry to take so much of your time. Yes, sir.
I was just going to say one last thing. I do have a meet and greet on the 22nd. I have flyers here for, so probably after the meeting I can hand out a flyer for you to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate your vote. Thank you. Jason, do you want to introduce your senatorial candidate, please?
Sure. So
You told me his name and I forgot. Sorry.
That says it right.
So over the course of time of being about as vocal as I can in the community, I had the opportunity to meet a lot of people. And it was my pleasure to meet this awesome senatorial candidate, Dr. Rolando Toyos.
So my name is Dr. Toyos. I'm an eye surgeon, and I'm running for U.S. Senate, so I'm not a career politician. My wife is also an eye surgeon. We have a practice called Toyos Clinic. We've had it for 20 years. It started out with 2 people in a restaurant like this, writing on a napkin our business plan. Now we've got 5 clinics throughout Tennessee. We've got several employees, 8 doctors. And it's pretty easy why I'm running, and it seems like this is the crowd that would understand what I'm talking about. But my parents legally immigrated here from Cuba and to flee Castro's Cuba. And that's how it starts. It starts with talks of socialism and getting people fired up with, especially our kids, telling them that they can be taken care of by the government, that they can have free health care, and everything. Trust the government, trust us, we're going to take care of you and take care of all of you all the same. And then little by little, what do? They take away your freedom of press, they take away your freedom of religion, they take away your freedom to even leave the country. So there's a whole group of my family and my brother's family that we don't even know in Cuba because we can't get in and they can't get out. And I'm concerned that this is the route that we're going in this country. When I see students and young people falling for the Bernie Sanders, Pelosi agenda of them telling, oh, you know, the government can take care of you, don't listen to these people, freedom and all that, and seeing them respond to that, it tells me that this is the same path that we saw in Castro's Cuba, and it never works. What happens, those people take their freedoms and then they become dictators. And then they die and then they give their dictatorship to their relatives. And it's never worked anywhere. It didn't work in Russia, didn't work in Cuba, didn't work in Venezuela. It's not going to work here. So I've got 3 daughters. They're teenage daughters, and they're all very successful, and they want to do well. They want to do well in this country. And we're teaching them the same things that my parents taught me at the dinner table, that liberty and freedom are very important, that you should fight for it. My brother's a lieutenant colonel in the Army, so one of my big platforms is taking care of veterans. I think it's a shame that they have a higher unemployment rate than the general population, a higher suicide rate than the general population, a higher homeless rate than the general population, and a higher opioid addiction rate than the general population. The other thing that I see, and you mentioned Reagan, this is exactly what Reagan was talking about. If they take your health care, if the government becomes part of your health care, they take away your liberty and freedom. That's the first way they do it, is by going after your health care. When Obamacare came out, I read that 2,000-page document and I said, this is designed to implode our system so the government can take over our health care. And every day we go further and further down this road, they're getting more and more control. If you look at Medicaid, which Medicaid was supposed to be the health insurance that when you've lost your job, when you are down on your luck, where it's just a safety net for those people that are in need. We now have 75 million people on Medicaid or CHIP. So that's close to 1/4 of our population are now in that down on your luck insurance. We're paying more for prescription medications than any other country. Why? Because the government has a law that says that they can't negotiate drug prices. Every other country negotiates drug prices. We pay 40% more because that law is in there. So if you look at what Medicaid and Medicare right now is spending, we're spending $1.2 trillion. That's about 1/4 of our budget. And the part of that budget that's been increasing is Medicaid, getting more and more Medicaid people on the rolls. And this doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but it's starting to become a big deal. Washington State recently, with all these Medicaid patients, they demanded that they should have the same drugs as everyone else. One of the drugs was for hepatitis C, to stop cirrhosis. They had a budget of $22 million. Medicaid recipients sued the government, said they should have this cirrhosis medication, and now their budget is $222 million. And it's bankrupting the state. And they're going state to state to state. These liberals are going state to state to state and getting this so that they can finally implode our system and go to single payer. And I'm sending out the warning, if they go to single payer, that's it. Our system is done. Then illegal immigration is another big part of my platform. There shouldn't be, as a son of illegal immigrants, there should be no amnesty.
Yeah.
There should be no DACA.
Yeah.
We should have a border wall.
Yeah.
Build the wall, and then if we give people temporary protective status, doesn't mean they get to stay here for the rest of their life. We can help them, and they can go back. Now, if we don't do this, again, this is another way to implode our system. My brother is currently working with Homeland Security, and these gangs that you're hearing about, like MS-13, this is real. They're infiltrating the United States. There was 1,700 murders in Tijuana, which is one of the border towns right outside California. And what is it? It's 5 competing gangs trying to take over the drug war from the narcos that have died. And these groups are now coming to the United States and doing the same thing here. We've got a lot of people in the shadows, a lot of illegal immigrants, and they're recruiting more and more of these illegal immigrants to come in to their system and to this drug war. And this is the stuff that my brother and other people are fighting every day, and we've got to give them help. We've got to get illegal immigration reform in as soon as possible, and we need to deport the illegal immigrants. If they're, the one thing that I say as a person and listening to my parents and their hardships to legally immigrate here, if you give something like DACA, what you're saying to all these people that are spending all this money and spending all this time to legally immigrate here is that we're not a nation of laws and people can cut the line in front of them. And this is not the United States that we know, and this is not fair to them. And the other thing that is brought up all the time, we're not doing them any favor by letting them